How did you bootstrap Runway to work with nearly 100 companies without external funding?
Yeah, ultimately, in order to keep me afloat, I had to have some income. Having a full-time job when I started the business was huge. There's no way I would have been able to do it without it. And so all the money that we made from our customers, we just reinvested back into the business. I think we did like almost 6 figures in revenue. And then year two, it was pretty much the same thing. Of course, I got laid off in April, so I did have to go last year 5 months without a paycheck. I could have paid myself out of the business. I decided not to. That was pretty huge, and that's helped us grow.
Ford, first off, man, I met you through Chris Donnelly, who's a huge creator on LinkedIn. We were both a part of this great kind of group of people that have learned a lot from LinkedIn and just kind of iterating individually and then now collectively. I really want to hear a deep dive into, dude, like how did you get here? But let's break it into chunks, right? So for the people that are just listening in and tuning in for the first time, Ford, high level overview, dude. What do you do?
Yeah, totally, man. It's been great collaborating, yeah, the past few months. But no, I essentially, I'm a founder, young, hungry entrepreneur, right? 27. Um, from Atlanta, went to school at Georgia Tech. Past 2.5 years, I've been working on a staffing and recruiting company for university students. So connecting companies to undergrad or fresh grads for work opportunities, and kind of approaching it from more of a marketplace angle than like I guess your traditional recruiting and staffing agency. But yeah, just been doing it for the past 2.5 years, and then we got connected. Probably like a year and a half in, I was doing all the sales myself, right? I was doing just everything that a founder does. And I was like, all right, I need to figure out how to get more reach. So how do you get more reach? Like, how do you reach 1,000 people at once? Well, you got to be on social media. You have to put yourself out there. And so, kind of started posting online, starting on LinkedIn in February of last year, and struggled a little bit, and reached out to Chris and got connected with his program, and kind of changed strategies around the summer, in mid-July, and kind of the rest is history.
So, for those of you who aren't familiar with, and it's funny because I reference the audience a lot just because I love the user experience of getting people into the actual story. So, for whether it's 5 or 5,000 or 50,000, I want to make this like a bespoke kind of like you're sitting in like a fire chat with Ford. I mean, he's already got the voice for it. He's got the swag for it. You know what I mean? So like he'll definitely pull you in and rope you into the story. But dude, you have 80,000 followers on LinkedIn. Um, Talk to me a little bit about what was that, hey, I kind of got it dialed in. Was it when you met Chris? Were you already figuring things out on your own with your audience? And was LinkedIn your first and only platform that you were really focused on?
Yeah, so funny enough, I've pretty much been a social media hater my whole life. I've been like, I don't want to be on Instagram. Like, I don't want to be the one posting pictures of me like traveling to places, and I just don't want to. I don't know. I'm not a very like. Yeah, I just don't want to put myself out there like that traditionally. But then I realized the amount of business leverage you can get right from having an online presence. So I've started tapping into LinkedIn, and no, I did not have anything dialed in. Kind of the aha moment was probably I did Chris Donnelly's course, and then even like a month after the course was when I was like, all right, I got it figured out. But before I joined, I was doing a lot more. I guess just like building in public type of content where I would just post about like wins and losses that I was experiencing as a founder, and like wins and losses that my company was having. And so that was fine. Like that reached my first level connections, like my friends and inner circle were like, okay, heck yeah, like I like this stuff, want to support Ford. But the whole point of me doing that was to reach like a broader audience. Like my first level connections, they know who I am. They know what I'm doing. They're friends with me, right? So I was like, I need to reach people who aren't my friends, who have no idea who Ford Coleman is. So I kind of changed, yeah, strategy through Chris's approach, posting a little bit more, just kind of educational content, and then have since built an audience. So yeah, I was at like 8,000 connections in July, in the summer, last July. But it wasn't like, again, they weren't following my content. That was just from me networking around with people. And then, yeah, now I'm at crazy like 80,000 or so. But
It's
took a
funny.
while to get there.
I have so many questions for you, but one of the questions that kind of just rang true while you were speaking was specifically that you highlighted the fact that you really weren't in social media like that. Like you were a hater basically, right? Which is funny to say. I find that the best people, and this is hyper generalization, definitely not, I mean, I've met some great people on social media, but the people who are really focused on building something beyond themselves have kind of that tendency of like they were either weren't on social media, they were at some point in time, then stopped posting. Now they're seeing the value add from a different angle. Um, so I know you've kind of made this full circle. Now you're on Instagram. It looks like you're on Twitter. Are you on YouTube as well?
Trying
Trying.
to.
Yeah, we were talking about that. So, um, what do you think? And I'm going to pivot this more for a question that serves the audience of young, hungry, either entrepreneurs or people looking to start their careers. What do you think the leverage is for? Well, let me rephrase the question really. When it comes to a resume, right? What part does your social media presence play into building out what I would consider a full stack resume, if you even want to call it that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, even outside of an entrepreneurial sphere, right? Like having a robust digital presence. Like if you're just, I don't know, a regular employee, applying for a job, first thing someone's going to do is look you up online. So if you have like a trustworthy online, solid, robust online presence, that gives you a bonus all day, every day with an employer, hiring manager, whoever. Now, in the entrepreneurial world, right? That's what your prospects do, right? So, you know, before your prospects are buying from you, I mean, they are trying to learn what your values are, learn who you are, and it's an investment for them to work with you, whether you have like a service that you're offering or if you have a software or whatever it is, right? At the end of the day, people buy from people, and it having an online presence will help instill trust and goodwill into those prospects. And so, you know, over time, the more and more you put yourself out there and post online and be online, right, the more and more your prospects are seeing you. And again, like I can't remember what the old adage is in like marketing, but it's like 98% of the people who see your stuff aren't buyers today. Like only 2% are, right? Or something like that. So you have to continuously do it. But your prospects, if they continuously see it, then maybe 6 months from now, right? You've instilled that goodwill for 6 months into them. Now they're ready to buy and you're top of mind.
Yeah, that's good. Dude, you're 27. I'm 33. To me, you're still a young buck. Maybe you don't feel like it anymore because I know at 27 I felt old as hell. But you've had a lot of life experiences, right? So talk a little bit about what was the path that you took originally before founding Runway, and what was that pivotal moment where you knew, dude, I gotta quit the safe path and bet on myself. What was that transformation like before and then the actual pivot?
Yeah, I did. I kind of didn't get into trying to start like I guess real businesses until my senior year of college. But of course, I graduated and I needed a job. I needed income. So I did take kind of a traditional route, went corporate, worked for a big, like Fortune 500 company. But I was always working on things on the side, like trying to do side hustles, trying to figure out other ways to, make money because my passion was in entrepreneurship. So probably like the first 2 years, even I was in my corporate job, I was just like testing new things, like just trying to, do things that could be like a cool business. So I was actually stuck in like this 0 to 1 phase for like 2 years, making all sorts of mistakes, like wasting time, like building apps instead of right, like going to market and actually like selling and getting customers, and like having your customers tell you what they want, right? So I was kind of stuck there for about 2 years, but and then I fell into Runway, and even I still held on to my corporate job for like about a year and a half into Runway, and my whole plan was to pretty much once my business was like could sustain a livable wage for me, I was going to quit. And a livable wage is not like 100K. That livable wage is like, all right, pay for my rent, pay for my groceries. Let me at least maintain like a somewhat normal lifestyle, and that's a livable wage. So that was my plan. And I started focusing like a ton of my time into my business. Like I was working 60 hours a week on my company and just getting all the stuff done I needed to at my corporate job. And Luckily, the decision was made for me. In April of last year, I was laid off. Just they were doing a ton of big tech layoffs, and so I was laid off, and that was like, all right, well, it's time to go. Time to go all in. Like that's a sign from God that it is time to go. So that was kind of my journey from going to a good school, Georgia Tech, going to like your classic big company, and then tapping into full time into entrepreneurship.
I'm looking at your online resume, your LinkedIn. I know you got a bachelor's in, it looks like, finance, business administration, strategy, and innovation. I mean, dude, that sounds like you were just like super laser focused in school. You're probably like top 10 in your class, if not like top 1%. And then you're taking this huge risk of, dude, I'm going out on my own now. What was the support system around you, family, friends? What did they think when you're like, I'm not going to get another job. I already got this thing going on. I'm doing it.
Oh man, that's a good one. So my family actually is like pretty traditional. Like my dad has just always had pretty like steady nine to five job. I mean he's still working today, and has obviously risen up to kind of like a C-suite level, but he's always been pretty safe. And then my brother, super traditional route, went to Vanderbilt, did banking, got his MBA at Booth, and now is in private equity. I have a little sister that's like doing the whole Boston Consulting Group thing. So I'm actually kind of like a little bit of an outlier. And my dad was always like, no, like you need to like always be getting some income. Like that's too risky. Like don't do that. Like hold on to your job as long as you can. So to be honest, like the support system I have was just other builders, other entrepreneurs in my community that I could kind of tap into and relate with. And those were the people that I would, yeah, like tap into, and they would encourage, keep going, keep going. So I know there's some entrepreneurs out there where their dad's an entrepreneur, so it's like, all right, let's go. Like I want to do it too. I love it. But there's probably also a lot of people out there like me too that their parents are like, don't do it. Keep your job.
Well, you're in the staffing and recruiting side of the world. And so you're obviously a proponent of people getting careers and landing jobs and that sort of thing. So it's not like you're anti, there's this kind of movement, right, amongst a lot of online entrepreneurs, or seemingly so, that they absolutely like, kind of just undermine the value of a 9 to 5. It doesn't sound like you take that stance, but obviously you had this grand vision for Runway. So when you're either advising people, or if you coach them, or if you're recruiting them yourself, like what's some of that ammunition that you give them to make them either determine the path that's best for them, or at least give them enough of a, hey, yeah, I'm doing this entrepreneurial thing, but like, go ahead, try this career path out, see how it works for you. What frame of reference do you use for coaching people like that have questions? Should I even be in corporate America? Should I just go for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it depends on if some people have a relative idea what they want to do. Like there are a lot of young entrepreneurs that'll reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, like I love, I love hearing your story, going the corporate route, then diving into entrepreneurship. Like I'm looking to do the same thing, but I want to do entrepreneurship, but like I don't have an idea. Like how do I even tap into this?" So I do, tell young people, hey, like honestly, a big thing was for me getting like a corporate job. If I could have gone back in time and done it all over again, I would have done it the exact same. I am actually not a supporter of, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to live in your parents' garage and eat ramen for a year in order to make it. I'm not a supporter of that. I think as long as if you're working on things that you're passionate about, then the sky's the limit for you. So I tell young people, if you're getting into entrepreneurship, but you don't know where to start, like try and get side projects and like try and convince people, like you have to be good at something, one thing. And if you're good at that, try and do it for someone. Maybe do it for free for them for a couple times, right? And then if you get a couple testimonials of you doing good work for someone, try and sell that, and do that as a side gig, but totally get corporate job so you can kind of like build some savings before um, you like totally take the deep dive. But for other people, right? I mean, if you're not into entrepreneurship, it's totally cool going and working right for someone else and trying to help them uh, execute on their vision and mission. I know plenty of people like young sales professionals who are hungry, they're ready to grind, but like they don't want to be like a CEO or anything, but they want to rise up to be like a VP of sales and run a sales organization and stuff like that. And so, for people like that, it's like, hey, I mean, just I mean, it's sales, so hit your numbers, hit your results, but keep your head down, keep going.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I think for me personally, I'm kind of in the similar space as you are, although I have other things going that are more adjacent to or similar to working a job versus being full-time entrepreneurial. But basically, I knew that I was happiest when I had a full-time job that had enough flexibility where I could pursue part-time passions that still allowed me to be profitable in those part-time passions. Because ultimately speaking, and you and I have chatted about this offline, is to a degree, right? Is like if your business fails, you still fall to a baseline of a salary and benefits. With full time entrepreneurship, man, there's no parachute, dude. You're going all the way down to the bottom potentially. In fact, you know what? I interviewed this guy earlier in 2024. Without getting into his story too much, he built a company, a sizable paving company in the nine-figure revenue range. A few missteps landed him in a negative net worth of $50 million. $50 million. I'm talking like, dude, like I feel gut punched when I'm like, oh man, I have to 10,000, 20,000 here and there just to like keep things afloat. Like this guy's $50 million in. Anyway, I feel like you kind of build that resistance and resilience. All that to be said, the bottom can keep going with entrepreneurship. Uh, so have you had those conversations with people, like telling them, like either talking them off the ledge, kind of like your parents and your family was trying to talk you off the ledge, or are you a little bit more, you know, I'm doing it, it's being done, I'm transparent with you, but I still think you should take the risk if you, A, absolutely hate what you're doing, B, have proof of concept, like maybe there's a laundry list of things that you run people through if they want to take that leap?
Yeah, ultimately for me, kind of like guiding people, it's life is short, man. So you gotta work on things that you're passionate about. And at the end of the day, right? If you're passionate about entrepreneur, but you're passionate about an idea, it's not about the dollars. It's not about even like the money you're bringing in. If you like what you're doing, then that will number one make you happy. But number two, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you'll probably be more successful at the end of the day in doing that. So you know, I'm more of a guy that's like jump into the deep end, like take the risk and calculated risk, put in the work, right? Um it's not just gonna get handed to you. You gotta work really hard. But uh yeah, I'm more of a go for it, life is short.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, if you can stomach the risk, take it for sure. I definitely agree with you there. I want to pivot and highlight a few things about Runway that I think, anybody listening would really benefit from. So, I know that Runway is all about helping young professionals find meaningful work. And correct me if I'm wrong in saying any of that. What do you think the most underrated skill is that can set someone coming into the workplace nowadays? What do you think that underrated skill is that could actually set them apart?
I would say, to be honest, man, one of the most underrated skills that people don't think too often on is hustle. I think hustling to get, not hustling like, oh, like to the point of burnout where it's like working 24/7, but it's like no matter what, jumping on top of opportunities when they come up. Or like if you're new to the workforce, if you get an email in your inbox from someone, don't wait a day to respond right away. So like having kind of that proactivity, I think is kind of a skill that every employer really admires out of employees, but it isn't necessarily talked about that much, just because it's a little bit more of a soft skill rather than it's more of an intangible rather than a tangible skill. So that's what I see too with a lot of the young people that we place into jobs. Like most of the young professionals that are getting the work opportunities are the ones that are, you know, showing up to the interview 5 minutes in advance. They're sending a introduction before the interview starts. They're sending a follow-up email after the interview. And when they're working on the job, they are constantly communicating with their employer, asking them questions, and not being just kind of in their own shell, or scared to bring something up because of how it might they think someone else will think about it or feel about it.
That's solid. That's actually really good. And I feel like a lot of people, with the uncertainty of AI and just market shifting, and the way that the hiring market has been for, I mean, a lot of us, even whether we have experience or not, it's just like hearing that is definitely like, okay, cool. Like I'll put in the work, I'll do the grind. I'll do my due diligence 5 minutes early. Follow up emails. I feel like that's really really helpful advice. In your opinion,
People, believe it or not, like most people aren't doing that. So like
yeah.
most of the candidates that we're, kind of recruiting onto our platform, and we're coaching them up on this stuff, and they, because the young professionals, they're not necessarily getting taught that. They don't know that, hey, it looks good if you shoot an email 24 hours before the interview just saying, hey, I'm super excited to have a conversation with you. They don't know that. And so when we're giving them that advice, so they're like, oh, heck yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
Amazing. That's awesome. Um, Another career related question for you that I feel like a lot of listeners would benefit from. In your opinion, what's the fastest way to level up your career in the next 6 months?
I would choose like three different, if you're a young professional, well, maybe not even young, right? If you just want to level up in other areas, I would pick three things that you want to try and get like pretty good at, and then try and do like get like side hustle jobs in those three departments. So if you want to try and get good at sales, like go to an employer and just say, I'll work for you for free. Just trying to learn how sales works, and do that for 2 months. And then you'll be able to, the reason that's important is, right, when you are rising up in the ranks in your career, being able to talk about all those different aspects in business is crucial. I mean, if you want to be like high up in the food chain, you have to know how sales intertwines with marketing, and how that intertwines with operations, and how you communicate with engineering, and whatnot. So if you're able to do honestly just like entry level jobs in like all different kind of verticals of business, that would be super valuable for an employer.
Um, I want to go back to your story here. How did you bootstrap Runway to work with nearly 100 companies without external funding? And you kind of touched on this because you mentioned that you were still working a full-time job while building up your business. But talk to me a little bit more in detail about that.
Yeah, ultimately, in order to keep me afloat, I had to have some income. So, having a full-time job when I started the business was huge. There's no way I would have been able to do it without it, unless like I was living at home. uh, but to be honest, even like my co-founder had, both of us had other sources of income, right? For the first bit. And so all the money that we made from our customers, revenue from our customers, we just reinvested back into the business, reinvested into marketing, or, signing up for courses to teach us different things that to upskill. So that could help us grow the business. And so literally for the very first year, both me and him had other income, so we didn't have to pay ourselves. Um, I think we did like almost six figures in revenue, but again, our margin, that's top line. So we probably brought in 25K, but that's all. We just reinvested that into the company. And then year two, it was pretty much the same thing. Of course, I got laid off in April, so I did have to go. I got 3 months severance, so I did go last year 5 months without a paycheck. Um, I could have paid myself out of the business. I decided not to, and reinvested in things. But ultimately, I had that 5 months of runway because I was very conscious of how I spent, of the money I was saving from my corporate job. So that was pretty huge, and that's helped us grow as well. Just like being able to invest that money into other things instead of paying the founders now. That's not that sustainable. At some point, you can get like in a bad cycle where you're like, oh, I'm not going to pay myself because like I can use this money for something else in the business. So like you as the founder, like you're always taking the sacrifice, and you're always like, oh no, like I don't want to pay myself because I can put 10K into this thing that can help grow the business. But you have to like at some point start paying yourself and build yourself into the model. And so that's what we've done this year.
That's good, man. Um, you don't have to answer this if it's like private information, but like, are you guys now starting to look into funding and other sources for growing the company?
No, no, I want to keep it bootstrapped and just do it that way. I don't know. I've just been yeah, early on, right? I mean, I was doing the accelerators. I was applying to like Techstars and YC and like talking, my colleagues and friends were getting in, and I was having conversation with investors early on, but it just felt like the whole investor VC thing was just like an ego boost. And it felt like we got investment offers actually, but I turned them down just because my gut was telling me not to do it. Number one, because I didn't know fully where I would spend the money, but number two, it was like felt like I was doing it just to be cool, not to like help grow the business. And so I think I love being super strapped on the resources and just having to like gut it out and figure it out yourself, as painful as it is. I just love that kind of pain, to be honest. And so we'll 100% we're staying bootstrapped forever.
It's awesome, man. I have like a slew of questions, but I'm going to try to keep it confined and focused here on the themes. One of the things that did come to mind was when you mentioned your co-founder. So is it just two of you, or how does the structure work right now? You and your co-founder, or do you guys have
Uh, we
more?
we had three. One dropped off last year. No, yeah, last year in like March, just went separate ways. Kind of that's just how it goes sometimes. But then we just brought on our third partner in October of last year. So now we're back to three.
Are
But
you?
there's me and my one co-founder were the ones that started this thing 2.5 years ago. Have stayed together.
I'm rocking the represent.clo. I should have rocked the civil regime. Are you able to talk about who your co-founder is, or does he like to keep that?
Ah, yeah. I mean, his name's Cam Holmes. He's one. He's a designer, product designer. Went to undergrad Auburn, master's Georgia Tech, which is where we got connected. And then our third, Cole Johnson, was a Purdue guy. I actually grew up with him in Atlanta, and he's software engineering. So we kind of have the dev design, and then me, sort of the sales marketing hustle.
Nice, nice. Do you think that that provides the best stability when it comes to any startups? Like, are you opposed to the one person startup, model? I know there's a lot of solopreneurs out there that talk about and preach a big game about solopreneurship, but is your thought process more in line with like, no, you should have multiple founders for this particular reason?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what company you're building. I mean, I think the solopreneur is probably pretty common in like maybe a coaching business or yeah, kind of like your accelerator cohort style business. Like I feel like I've seen that a lot. But for like a SaaS marketplace type of company, I mean, one person, that would be very, very difficult. Because like we would not be. I need my partners badly. Like they have all different skills that I don't have, and I don't have. It's not worth it for me to learn those skills. It's better. It's higher leverage if I'm doing the things that I'm good at. So I'm a proponent of do it with the team.
And I asked that question preemptively because I know that there's data showing that, especially from the SaaS side of the house, the um, the average revenue per founder is actually increased substantially when you have three founders. Like that trifecta ultimately not only gives you like more overall success, but even more revenue per founder, which is crazy to think because going back to my earlier point, there's this whole wave of people thinking that solopreneurship, even amongst I mean, I have a buddy of mine who builds apps, and this is nothing against him if you're listening, but been very much a lone wolf mentality, and I think that it kind of does a disservice in some cases because of the benefits that you're mentioning here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I can't now it's I have full trust in everyone to like work in their own department, in their own zone. And like we don't step on each other's toes. Like if it's anything about software related, it's like, all right, cool, you got it. Like I trust you to figure it out. If it's anything like, all right, we got to beef up sales. It's like, all right, Ford, like you got to start hitting the streets harder.
True.
And I know that I got it.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm going to ask you one last question here and leave it open ended if you wanted to chat about anything else. But going back to the hiring and just the recruitment landscape, the job market, where do you see the future of entry level hiring heading? And well, let me just ask that because I also want to ask a follow up question to that. So, where do you see the future of entry level hiring heading?
Yeah, my prediction, well, because it aligns with what I'm building and why I started building this company. But I totally think entry level hiring is really going to start morphing into kind of the gig freelancing space. Um, I think it's very natural. I think entry levels, like a lot of them have no idea what they want to do. So it makes a lot more sense then to like do a lot of, like small jobs or small projects with companies while you're like an entry level to learn what you want to do rather than just get like one big corporate internship one summer before you graduate. So I think that as more and more companies have adopted kind of this like fractional work, freelancing, um, kind of employment model, I think that it really suits entry level as well, and like interns and internships well. I think that could like really totally break things open and start giving entry levels more work opportunities, making them more attractive in the workforce. Because that's a big drawback from employers. It's like, I don't want to invest in entry level because, like, what, you got one internship in college and like that's it. I mean, I don't want to pay 50, 60 grand to hire you because I still have to train you and teach you everything. So I think these kind of the freelance work is going to really tap into entry levels in a very positive way.
Dude, I love that. So how big do you see Runway taking off into the future? If everything goes as planned, you guys are hitting what kind of numbers? How many people have you placed? What are you looking at? Big exit. What's your end goal, man? We want to know.
My end goal is in 7 years, I want to be at 10 million annual revenue. And at that point, either, yeah, exit out, start something different, or if the growth strategy is looking good, just keep building it up. So that's my goal right now. We're on pace this year to do, I don't know, a little bit short of 1 million. So we have a long way to go. But um, yeah, I want to, at the end of the day, our mission is to help 1 million businesses realize the potential of entry level talent and invest in them. And so I think we've worked with about 300. So I got 999,700 to go.
I love that, dude. I love that. Well, they say that your first million, and I heard this from a mentor of mine who cracked several hundred million a year over the course of building out his own company and scaling it from nothing to literally his living room to several hundred million. And he always said the hardest million is the first million. And so you're right there, man. You're about to crack it, and I could see you guys skyrocketing after that. Um, I appreciate your time for it. If there's anything else you wanted to share with people, obviously we'll link all the great resources that you guys have available. But if there's anything else you wanted to share with the audience, what would it be? Parting words.
Parting words was, I would say, uh, if you're a young and hungry entrepreneur, you just got to keep going and fight through it. It's like I feel like it kind of goes through phases. Like for me, it went through different phases where the first year was super exciting because it was my first year doing it, got customers, got revenue. I'm like, oh, let's go. Like, this is sick. Like, I'm like kind of like actually contributing to the economy, like helping people out. Like, this is awesome. And then sort of year two came and I was like, oh, shoot. All right. If I need to level up my goals. And I'm like, damn, all right, this is going to be a lot of work. And year two, we ended up hitting kind of all of our goals, but it's still kind of a lonely path. And you start sort of not being able to relate to like your old friends from school, old friends from college, and just like colleagues that you grew up with, and you start kind of entering like a new sphere of the world. So that like it's kind of challenging to navigate. And some of my parting words would be, if you are currently in that space, there's a light to the end of the tunnel, but unfortunately, you just have to work through it and keep going and keep fighting.
Push past the dip. I love it, Ford. Well, yeah, for the people listening and watching this, I'm going to go ahead and link all of Ford's information here. Follow him on LinkedIn. He's got some great content, of course. And then he's popping off on Instagram. We're talking a little bit of YouTube strategy on the back end. So I know he'll be, he'll probably hit those Hormozy numbers here pretty shortly. So get in while you can.
Heck yeah, I appreciate it, Nico. This was great.